I think a lot of the way that they were able to pull it off last year, I mean, look, they didn't have a successful season, but offensively they were really, really good. It's because like Brian Schottenheimer turned out to be one of those guys, you know, from a head coaching perspective. He was really suited to that role. But again, you were in Dallas. What are we thinking as we look at the Cowboys here?
I'm glad you mentioned that about Brian Schottenheimer, because I had someone tell me during training camp a line that I thought really stuck with me, which is that if you have the infrastructure to support guys across the personality spectrum and across the spectrum of, hey, some guys are going to be better off the field, some are not, then you have a business advantage because you have more employees who you're going to be able to fit into your system. So that sense, George Pickens, look, George Pickens is not like, he doesn't have off-field criminal stuff. I'm not suggesting that.
He's not a bad guy. Yes. He's just a different dude.
But we do all know that things didn't end ideally in Pittsburgh off the field. Because of Brian Schottenheimer, because of Dak Prescott, and because of the culture they've created, it seems, and we have 1 year of evidence so far, that they can support George Pickens, and that allows them to have an advantage because not every team wants George Pickens because they don't think the infrastructure is going to allow him to thrive. From an on-field standpoint, I mean, I think the Cowboys are like, we don't know if we're going to have George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb a year from now, so let's make sure to max out this year. And that's not at the exclusion of their other weapons. Obviously, Javonte Williams is coming off a 1,200-yard season. You've got Jake Ferguson. You have Ryan Flanoy. I have to get Camden Brown into this show because that guy is turning heads at Cowboys camp. And one day you will agree with me and producer Colin.
Okay. Can we peel the curtain back here a little bit? Because we actually haven't said the name Camden Brown. This is like an off. This is off.
Well, that's on you that you haven't said the name yet.
Okay, well, why don't you just quickly tell the people who Camden Brown is?
You know, he's just this rookie guy. He's just flashing out of, what is it, Mississippi, I believe. I should really have done my homework before saying his name on the show. But every single day he's making plays. Like, you go to certain camps, and there's one in Pittsburgh and one here that I'm like, who is this guy and how does he have plays day after day after day? And if you go to the Cowboys reporters and their videos on Twitter, every single day he's got acrobatic catches. And I think he's really working his way into a role the way that Ryan Flanoy did.
Yeah, Camden Brown is an American football wide receiver for the Dallas Cowboys of the National Football League, parentheses NFL. He played college football for the Auburn Tigers and the Georgia Southern Eagles. He is 6'2", 204. He's 22 years old, undrafted free agent this year. But yeah, listen, I will say, again, this is one of these like producer Colin little hype bunnies that he's texting me about all the time. And I have not brought it up. Not yet, but I'm sure he will soon. But to credit producer Colin, I hate to do this, but to credit Colin, he was telling me about Ryan Flanoy for a long time. He was like, you're going to love this guy. You're going to love this guy. Yeah. And he actually really does pass the reception perception sniff test. So credit to him on that. But Camden Brown, again, undrafted free agent, something to watch out for.
Louisiana, that originally, not Mississippi. I always confuse those two. But CeeDee was excited that he's a Louisiana guy. So.
Okay, incredible. All right, so that's their like number 5 maybe receiver, but they're number 1 and number 2 receiver, CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens. I remember talking to CeeDee in February, and I've talked to him many times over the years. I think he's like got the right personality too as a number 1 to like have a alpha 2 and like a really, really high end 2 there as well. I think those guys go well together. At least that's my sense of it. But I really think, Jori, this offense is just absolutely going to cook this year. I'm really excited about both of these players. Any reason to be hesitant at all?
Only because we all think it's going to cook this year. Am I like a little hesitant?
Sure.
But I think from an on paper standpoint, absolutely. I think that what's interesting to me about what you're saying is, yes, CeeDee Lamb told me, he was like, at Jerry, pay George Pickens, like, let's get it done. He wants to. It's better for both of them. They're each getting more attention. I will say, last year we primarily saw CeeDee as the 1A and George as the 1B or 1A kind of A. It is going to be interesting what the dynamic becomes.
Do you think that flips at all?
If that flips.
You think it's possible?
I think from a talent standpoint and a chemistry standpoint, during this training camp, it appears George Pickens was a little bit ahead of CeeDee Lamb. It was interesting because when I go to these camps, and I'm only there for a day or two, I see what it's there, and then I'll go ask players. I'll be like, hey, Dak, you and CeeDee were really connecting today. Is that how it's looked the whole camp? And as you can see, if you look at reporting, it's not. They were not on the same page quite as much as Dak and George. Now, Dak, the day I was there, really intentionally was like, I am going to get CeeDee involved. I'm going to get him on a go route early in practice, because once you get him on, then he kind of gets in that zone and it continues to work. So I would say I have a lot of confidence that George, again, assuming health from everyone, can really ball out. But I think that Dak knows that the offense will be at its best when all of those guys are involved. And so I still think he's going to want to split between CeeDee and George, obviously, depending on who's on them. And I think that even offensive coordinator Clayton Adams told me, he's like, we were seeing really creative defensive looks last year because everyone's like, how do we defend both of these guys at the same time?
Yeah, I get that. And I mean, look, I have these guys in the same tier from a fantasy standpoint. They're both going obviously really, really high. It's definitely the highest 1 and 2 receiver, across the industry here. But I like CeeDee as a late first round pick, but he's in that same tier as George Pickens. So if Pickens does outscore Lamb just like straight up, I do think that is within the range of outcomes. Last thing, real quickly, just from an alignment standpoint, they've talked more about moving George around this year. He quite literally can't move around less. He had the lowest slot percentage of any receiver that ran 200 or more routes last year. So do you think there's any sense that like it won't be just as straight up Pickens is the X, Lamb is the Z, because he took the fewest percentage of snaps in the slot, on the other hand, of his entire career. So what do we look like from a formational standpoint here?
I mean, maybe I still kind of think that he's best as an X, and he kind of just those catches he can make on the sideline are exactly what you want from him. And CeeDee has that versatility. Maybe even move him around a little bit, but I don't see him moving around quite as much as CeeDee.
Yeah, that's my sense. And the good news is he actually doesn't have to still be a really good player because he is that classic George Pickens X receiver.
Yeah.